chat. Dan VR. So over the last week or so, I've seen a ton of YouTube videos, YouTube discussion posts, and like Discord discussions talking about, is Deep Woken a sandbox game now, or is it just too easy? And that's a discussion worth having, and I've said this over the course of my channel multiple different times. What the feeling that people are experiencing now, that the game doesn't feel the same or the game's too easy, is fundamentally because of the game's lack of identity. The developer's lack of creative structure, you could say. And I have my little timeline of events up here. And this is super jank, but you get the idea. So we got the Deep Woken Direct from Infernasu, and we see a very sea adventure oriented. It's about stealth and questing. It's much slower, it's much grungier, it's darker. It's very much a roguelike. You look at the Deep Woken Direct, and it's very clearly like that's a MOMAD game. I can see how we went from Rogue to now Deep Woken. They're very much interconnected. And you know, a few months, a year passes, and we get Deep Woken on release. And Deep Woken on release, the official game that we got, it was nothing like the Deep Woken Direct. It was, you know, you had some aspects that were still there. It was darker, it was more grounded, it was lots of browns, greens, grays, and blacks. But the progression, the focus was no longer about exploration, it was about the depths. You know, it wasn't about the questing and the sea adventure, seafaring, it was about the depths, you know, the deep. That was the main focus now. But the game itself was still fundamentally difficult. You know, the game has always maintained the permadeath mechanic, but the earlier versions of Deep Woken, and it's not arguable, were much more difficult. It was harder to progress, it was harder to get items, it was harder to get a bell. It just felt more difficult. We had this grungier, darker, it felt like you were fighting to survive a lot of the time. But as the game progressed, we got things like Trial of One. Now it's easier to make a build. And then you got, okay, now it's easier to get armor enchants. Okay, now you can use the armor enchants in a gacha system to get a weapon enchant. Okay, now you can just get whatever weapon enchant you want. Okay, so now you can get, you know, starred items are much easier to get. And you know, now bells are much easier to get. Now we're going to speed up progression. Now we're going to and then you hit layer 2, and it was essentially just balls to the wall. Any armor enchant, you can have it. Weapon enchant, you can have it. Any starred weapon, any variant, not that hard to get. Shrine of Order, you can now make crazy fucking builds. Shrine of Chance, any talent you want. You can perfectly replicate your build every single time. You went from a game that was very dark, grungy, difficult, to this, now the game is very colorful. It's all over the place. Monsters flying left and right. You can get whatever you want, whenever you want it. Any weapon, any star, any art, like, the game suffers from this disastrous identity crisis because the developers feel like don't know what game they want. They'll spend 6 months making a game that's very difficult. It's easy to wipe. You're going to wipe. Items are rare. It's rewarding to get an enchant when you're farming or trading for it. It's rewarding to get a legendary weapon. Next 6 months, actually, we made it too hard. And we kind of want to appeal to casual players. Okay, let's make it easy to get enchants. Okay, let's speed up progression. Okay, let's make this boss easier. Let's make that boss easier. Okay, let's speed up bell progression. Okay, actually, let's just speed everything up. And then 6 months after that, whoa, we went overboard. Like what Rag has said previously. Oh, I want the game to be hard. I want it to be, you know, I want people to wipe. It's just bouncing back and forth of making updates that create a difficult, like, roguelike setting, and then flipping the switch and going, actually, we want more casual experience. It's like they're working against themselves. They spend all this time making the game difficult, and then they spend the rest of the year reversing all the work they had already done. So you get nothing actually done. I know for a lot of people, Layer 2, like Verse 2, was a massive disappointment because everyone thought it was going to be difficult. It was marketed as being incredibly difficult. And then it just wasn't. It's just not hard. It's not very fun either. I've said this for months. You know, a shout out to Agamatsu for saying in his most recent video that Battle Royale takes away from the feeling of Deep Woken. That's another check mark in the times I was right and they were wrong. Because they swore up and down, I'm just being dramatic. Well, nah, yeah. Maybe one day other creators with a larger platform will at the very least mimic what I'm saying. Like, if they don't give me credit for my ideas, at the very least just parrot it. So maybe the developers listen. Because otherwise we just play this game where I say, hey, this is a bad idea. They tell me I'm wrong. Months later they admit, damn, that was not good for the long-term health of the game. And I'm like, oh, I would tell you so, but the game's already fucked, so like I don't feel like I've won anything, you know? There was no victory to be had because I'm just having a worse experience along with the other players that I tried to warn. Let's go Deep Woken.